Okay, in this video we're going to talk about what are called scatterplots and lines of best fit. And this is satisfying the California Common State Standards, high school statistics actually, although this is also included in algebra, and this is identifying data in standard B6. So first off, what is a scatterplot? A scatterplot is really just an XY axis where you plot data that you've received from the real world, like you might have done an experiment, or you're trying to describe the relationship between two variables. Relationship, that's important. The relationship between two different variables, okay? Now the variables might be something like height and weight. Is there a relationship between height and weight? Is there a relationship between how fast you go and then what the distance that you travel? And of course, that would make sense that there would be, okay? Now, each of these axes, right? Normally we call this the x-axis and the y-axis. We can also call this the horizontal axis. And we call this one the vertical axis. But when we have something specific, like in a scatter plot, we actually give it the name of whatever we're looking for. So for example, we'll just say like the height and the weight. And what we'll do is we'll ask ourselves the question, is there a relationship between how tall you are and how much you weigh? Okay? Now normally you collect that data like in a table form. So we'll just do this. Again, we'll call that the x, we'll call that the y. And remember that the x represents the height and the y represents the weight. Now let's just go around the room and we could just probably come up with some information. And we'll just measure everything in the same units. So let's say that if you are 60 inches tall, you weigh 110 pounds. All right, so these are in inches. These are in pounds. And let's just go around and let's collect data. And I'm just going to make some arbitrary numbers up. And let's say if you are 70 inches tall, you are 130 pounds. Let's say that if you're 65 inches tall, you are 105 pounds. Let's say somebody else, they're 61 inches tall and they weigh 135 pounds, etc., etc. Now, if I were to graph these coordinates on this plane, okay, on this XY axis, and let's do this, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, 65, 70, etc., etc., I might get something that looks like this. Okay? Now, this is called a scatter plot. It's called a scatter plot because it's not a direct, straight line. Now, what you can do is actually draw a line of best fit through these points. And normally what you do is you try to draw it so that there's just as many points above the line as there are below the line. Another way of doing that is just to measure the distance from the point to the line and then the distance from the point in the line below, and you try to make those as equal as possible. Okay? And from that you should be able to predict, for example, further points. So that, for example, if I guessed, let's say I had wanted to guess if someone were 70 inches tall, how much would they weigh? I would just go along to 70 along this line and then go up to the line of best fit, and it should predict what they might weigh. Okay, something like that. So that's what scatter plots are used for. And again, it's just another way of translating reality or words into mathematical symbols. I hope that was helpful.